I have been spending the last 24 hours drinking Shade of the Evening and learning about Euron. Now you gotta understand, this motherfucker is crazy. He's a psychopath. He's a sycophant. He's a drug abusing monkey. In this video, in this whatever you want to call this, I'm going to do my best to break down not only who Euron is as a character, but what his in-game goal is for not just Winds of Winter, but A Dream of Spring. Will he silence the song of everyone? Watch this video to find out. All right, now that we've gotten that done and over with, Euron Greyjoy is a cunt, okay? He's basically someone who was built up over, the last couple of books, and then once he finally makes an appearance, you're like, holy shit, this guy's the big bad one way or another. Now, to really understand who Euron is, you kind of have to go all the way back to his youth. There's some mystery about his character, but a lot of people, myself included, believe that he had magical gifts as a youth. He had visions that he would, see himself flying from high towers. Everything about him, his name, Crow's Eye, and all this stuff, just leads you to believe that at one point he was an agent of Bloodraven. Now, hear me out. Bloodraven is known as this mysterious character. Most of his story takes place 100 years before Game of Thrones starts. He helped defend his nation against the Blackfire rebels. He ended up, killing his own kin to do so. He's sent north of the Wall. He then becomes Lord Commander. Then eventually on a ranging mission, he steps out to smoke a ciggy and never comes back. We don't hear from him again until Bran discovers him north of the Wall. Now, Bran is very much an agent of Bloodraven. Bloodraven influences dreams. He shows his subject something that would make them seek out a greater mystery. And then, of course, that led Bran to find him north of the Wall. What if he did this with Euron? What if he was seeking a protege? What if he originally thought that Euron could potentially be the one to replace him as Bloodraven, the three-eyed crow beyond the wall? What if he saw who Euron is and then decided, never mind, this motherfucker is batshit. But all it took was for him to open Euron's third eye, and that's what sent Euron on this maniacal quest. Now, obviously, Euron has an affair with Victarion's wife. Victarion then kills his wife out of grief, and that's what gets Euron banned, and that's where he goes to Valyria in a shy, supposedly, in that 10 years. But who's to say that Bloodraven's early influence on Euron isn't what pushed him down the path? You know what? Maybe he's not a rogue agent of Bloodraven. Maybe he is the fire to Bran's ice, right? So this whole story is about duality. There's two parts to everything. Most of the characters aren't good or bad. They're in between. They're gray. Euron is pretty cut and dry. What if he's the one true evil of this story? What if Euron is the one to become the Night King? What if he's the one who has to go release the others from north of the Wall, and in doing so bring about a new world? That he could be the sort of climbing the ladder of chaos, and he'll crown himself the new God King on Earth, much like the Bloodstone Emperor. I don't know. I'm going to get into all that in a second, but I want to run through some of my notes first. Now, one of the biggest things to note is that with Euron's character, it means the coming apocalypse. And let me give you guys something else to look at. We'll click on the book version of his character. Right. So basically, he's the shade of the evening drinking weirdo, and it makes him drugged out. I strongly believe that armor that Aeron Damphair sees him at, the Valyrian steel armor that Aeron Damphair sees him in at the end of the Forsaken chapter, is an illusion. Aeron has been spending weeks in a watery dungeon, so much to the point that his feet are bloated and he could barely fucking walk. Then Euron comes in and gives him Shade of the Evening. It said that all of the food that Euron is given at this time is rotten. It's full of weevils. And most of the time, even though Euron Dampere scarfs that shit down, he vomits it back up. Now, not only is Euron seriously already fucked up mentally, then you add Shade of the Evening on top of that. As soon as he's forced to drink this thing that changes in flavor, it's sweet, then it's sour, it's rancid, then it's nastier, then it's even more disgusting. As soon as he drinks that, he gets whipped into this psychedelic vision of like all of this shit that basically is a lie. It's all bullshit. It's all an illusion. What Euron is trying to do is make Euron lose his faith and then have faith in Euron. So obviously he's going to be influenced by Euron, who's sitting right across from him, telling him, yeah, we're just going to sit and drink a cup of wine. Obviously, he's going to see what Euron wants him to. Euron wants him to see what all of the other priests that Euron have done in this dungeon that Euron is being kept in. Euron is doing that with his brother, and in giving him the Shade of the Evening, he's making Euron believe that Euron is some otherworldly creature. He's stealing his faith. Euron knows that gods are bullshit. Magic is real, right? But it only works with sacrifice. Not only sacrifice, but something about losing faith and then refinding it is what gives ultimate powers, what gives blood sacrifice. It's what makes it real. So the gods are complete bullshit, but there's some arcane force that works in Planetos and Westeros that Euron is trying to tap into. So maybe what Euron's goal is in, sort of being on this sort of like train of destruction is that one of the visions that Aeron sees is that Euron is sitting on the Iron Throne basically, and around him are all of the different gods and deities that have like the most presence in Westeros, and they're impaled. They're dying. He even sees the drowned god as one of the deities that are sort of impaled around Euron, and this is supposed to symbolize Euron becoming the new god of gods, right? The god king on earth, like the Bloodstone Emperor. Not necessarily. What that could be is that all of those are representatives of the priest, because remember, Euron has different faiths, different like priests that he's stolen from different faiths. He's got one priest of R'hllor, two faiths of the Seven, a few others. Maybe Euron's goal is to take these men, make them lose their faith, and then regain faith in him. And then once he does that, he kills them. He sacrifices them. He takes their blood. Right? I don't know. I'm kind of rambling here. But one of the things to note is that like Thoros basically does the same thing, right? So he loses faith and just on a whim says a prayer over Beric, and that's how Beric comes back. So that's what makes me think there's power in men losing faith and then gaining it back. Euron has, of course, been to Valyria. He's been to Asshai. He's been to the most mysterious places in the world. So obviously he would know of something like that. Maybe there was never a complete understanding. Like, obviously, everybody in this story, everyone who's playing a role in the end game, Daenerys, Jon Snow, Bran, Euron, they all have different magical abilities. Maybe each one of them has a sort of a role to play. And maybe eventually when they come together, we'll get a bigger picture of what's actually going on here. I will note that Aeron losing his faith in the drowned god, then gaining his faith in Euron, which he's sort of in the process of doing, and then the fact that he's of king's blood is something super special. Then not to mention Euron puts Folly of Flowers up on the front of the ship too, who's carrying his child. She believed in Euron. She tells Aeron about how she'll be his salt wife, and Daenerys his sea salt and rock, some shit. So they have sea wives and they have land wives. So basically, Folly of Flowers, before she has her tongue removed and is put out on the mass at the end of the Forsaken chapter with Euron Dampere, she believes in Euron. She thinks all the lies that he's telling her are true. So of course she believes, and then Euron takes advantage of that, puts her out on the ship. I think he's planning on sacrificing, two king's blood, and then also, much more in the Battle of the Blood that's coming. But before I talk about the Battle of the Blood, I do want to say that Euron's smiling eye is blue, but Euron's crow's eye is a glass candle. Now hear me out. I don't know if I'll be able to get a good image of it. We'll see. So basically, I think that his dark eye is actually a glass candle, and he uses it to skinward into the dusky woman who is currently with Victarion, who is currently on his way to Daenerys. So the main reason why I think this is because, like, when you first hear about Euron, you realize that he is the captain of a ship known as the Silence. One of the biggest things that ships do in order to sail the sea is communicate with each other. How the fuck is Euron the only person on that ship with the ability to talk, controlling all of these? They can't communicate with each other. So that's what made me to believe, along with the fact that I think that he's an agent of Bloodraven, maybe a rogue agent, maybe potentially still working for Bloodraven, but he's playing a darker role. He has to be the one to sort of unlock the apocalypse that will bring, Dany and Jon Snow and Bran together as Lightbringer, the three heads of the dragon. But maybe the way that he controls his ship is through warging. Maybe that's how he controls the dusky woman who's reporting on Victarion. Victarion knows that all of Euron's gifts are poison. So maybe if Victarion kills the dusky woman, maybe this would then make something happen at a moment where Victarion is reaching. It's so hard to theorize about this shit. But just getting back on track here, Euron's crow's eye is described as gleaming dark, like something so terrible and out of this world, but then it's also described as being red sometimes. Now, there's several different things, like literally frozen fire or dragon glass, that could be representative of that, but more specifically, dragon glass candles. There's someone named Urathon Nightwalker who is supposedly lighting glass candles that haven't been seen over in Essos. So there's several different reasons to believe that Euron can communicate for long distances and has the same power of Bloodraven and can also skin change and warg. Now, one of the things to note, I guess, as a sidetrack about Bloodraven specifically, and this links to Euron being a skin changer, is that during the Blackfire rebellions, more specifically during the third Hedge Knight book, in the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, there is a very strong possibility that a certain character named Maynard Plum is actually Bloodraven. When we first meet Maynard Plum, he's sitting in a weirwood forest on a weirwood stump. Maynard Plum disappears right before Bloodraven shows up, and while conversing with Duncan Ed, Maynard actually says, maybe I'm Bloodraven. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm the son of yada yada. It's insane. But basically, a lot of people think that Bloodraven disguised himself as Maynard Plum. At one point, when Maynard Plum is walking, Dunk sees one gleaming eye. Like, obviously, that's Bloodraven is known to have lost his eye in a fight or in a duel with Bittersteel. And the way that he's described is it's just very mysterious. Almost every other line in George's stories is meant to make you look further and read more into it. So if Bloodraven actually has the ability to sort of change his face, much like the Faceless men do in this story, it's possible that Euron has this ability as well. And maybe Euron is certain characters that are being mentioned in far off lands sort of being skin changed. Now, one thing of note that I think is really important is that Euron at one point has a dragon egg. Then he loses it. He says he tosses it to the sea. So a lot of people think that because Euron shows up right after Balon was killed, basically Euron gave the dragon egg to the Faceless men in order to kill Balon. So when he says poetically, I threw it into the sea, he meant that he gave it to the Faceless men in order for the Faceless men to toss Balon into the sea. A lot of people think that dragon egg is with Jaqen disguised as Pate at the Citadel, but I think that Euron still has that dragon egg. He knows how valuable it is. He may have discovered the ability to change his face. And maybe that's why the ghost of Highheart saw a Faceless man pushing Balon off the bridge. Maybe it was Euron. Maybe that's how he shows up so quickly. Like, why the fuck would he be in the Iron Islands, sending a Faceless man to do his dirty work, and then he's already there, right? That doesn't seem like Euron's style. I think Euron has the ability to skin change. I think he has the ability to also be a Faceless man and change his literal face. Maybe it's related to Melisandre and the ruby glamour. It could be all intertwined. And like I said, these magics are similar. They're just taught in different ways so that, no one person has the full complete image. They've got all different pieces of it, and maybe some of those pieces are the same. I don't know. But then another thing that I wanted to mention, and I'll change this background for you guys as well, is that our boy Euron may, you know, have all this set up, right? So we think he's the big bad. We know he's the sort of Lovecraftian, mysterious, eldritch horror. And I didn't know what the fuck eldritch horror was. I had to look it up. Eldritch basically literally just means, because, you know, like Marvel uses eldritch magic, and that's what Doctor Strange has, those symbols. Basically, it's just otherworldly. Anything that's described as something not from this plane of existence, and it's some sort of magical ability. So basically, I think that even though Euron is being set up as all of this Lovecraftian, Eldridgian, fucking crazy horror apocalypse bringer, he could die before he even meets Daenerys. Now, I mentioned earlier that he's headed towards something known as the Battle of the Blood, and Dampere has dreams where he sees basically this massive sea of blood. Actually, several different characters. Melisandre has the same dream. But basically, they see two towers and then an ocean of blood. And I think Euron specifically sees the ocean boil, right? So that made me think maybe something happens where they don't even meet each other. Maybe at the Battle of the Blood, there's a dragon summon, and that's what causes the boiling water. I don't know. Basically, the actual Battle of Blood is something that is really kind of looked forward to, right? So we have Arian in that area. We have several different characters that are in this area, and to be specific, Euron is doing something that's kind of weird. He was said to have 900 long ships, but they're not necessarily being seen in that area. Only part of them are, and they're said to be stationed on these like sort of isles that are around that area surrounding the Citadel. And just to sort of tie it back to what I was saying, Pate is at the Citadel. And that's a lot of people think that he's trying to figure out how to hatch a dragon egg, but he may actually be trying to figure out how to destroy the dragons, because we think that the Faceless men had a hand in sort of getting rid of the dragons in the first place. Maybe they played a role in the tragedy at Summerhall. Maybe they've influenced the crown in different eras that caused some of the Targaryens to sort of like destroy themselves. But it's something is going to happen in Old Town, and it's going to be fucking crazy. So a lot of people think that since spottings of krakens happen to do with rumors that they like are drawn to blood, there's a theory that Euron has a big ship that is said to be like just bursting at the seams and overflowing with shit, right? It's not known what's necessarily inside of that shit, but a lot of people think it could be filled up with blood. There's this dude called Left Hand Cod Luke, or Left Hand Lucas Cod, or some shit. And he basically tells Euron, your brother has sacrificed so many thousands of people to the drowned god. So you're like, okay, he pushes him out to sea, but why would Euron do that? He's not a godly man. He says, I don't believe in any gods. I want to become a god myself. So it's kind of like a weird dualism. But the fact that Left Hand Luke says they sacrificed thousands to the drowned god, and he says this while he's sitting in a captured reach with bodies hanging over him that appear to be drained of their blood, it's very possible that Euron has a ship filled with those thousands of people who he sacrificed in the name of himself with blood, and he's going to release that in the water when all of these forces, like I think eventually the plan is for Cersei, or no, Cersei did send the royal fleet down, and they have like 200 warships, and they're approaching that. It's going to be this big battle at Old Town. That's the case, maybe Euron will release that big bloody ship, and instead of what everyone else is thinking what's happening is that Euron's going to be trapped because he's basically got two opposing forces coming in from either side. Maybe he's the one that's going to be doing the trapping. Maybe he's luring them there into thinking like, oh, this is our best chance to take out Euron. And the Ironborn, they're spread out. This would be the best time to take them out. And in all actuality, Euron is doing this to summon krakens. Maybe when he drops that big ship full of blood in the water, the krakens will show up. And this is, of course, when Euron will control them. I think, Starks have the ability to warg and control animals. The Targaryens have the ability to warg and control dragons. And maybe the Greyjoys have the ability to control krakens. They are the seafaring nation. So if that's the case, maybe Euron has plans in controlling the land, air, and the sea. Maybe he wants to get a dragon from Daenerys. He's going to summon a kraken from the deep. And then eventually he's going to have an army big enough to take over the land. I don't know. At this point, this video is about 20 minutes long, and there were a couple more thoughts that I wanted to mention. Euron, I do believe he is warging every single person in his ship. I do believe that Euron is controlling all of the members on Silence by warging them. I also think that because he's known as the Silence and he's cuts out tongues, this story is called The Song of Ice and Fire. There could be several characters whose song he snuffs out completely with the tongue removal. And I just did a video on Tyrion or a theory video a couple weeks ago where I mentioned that Tyrion could have his tongue removed, and then him having his tongue removed but being, alive still is a way of killing his character without actually doing so. Maybe Euron is the one who does this. Maybe he silences several characters. Maybe it's possible that Euron is literally just an agent of destruction. So he is gonna play a role in the story, but it's literally just to fuck over and foil up the plans of other characters. And he may do so unknowingly, or it could just be, his path of trajectory. I do think that he was created by Bloodraven, and he could be an anti-hero for Bran. So Bran is the true hero. Bran is ice, so to speak, in this story. Even though we think ice is death and dark magic, maybe ice is meant to preserve. Maybe ice is meant to keep what is alive still alive by preserving it, destroying the fire. Maybe Euron is the fire because he's bringing war and destruction to Westeros, really to all of the world. Maybe Euron has the ability as well to change his face. Maybe he was the one who actually killed Balon as opposed to a faceless man. It just makes more sense to me. Why would he be right there right after Balon got killed unless he was the one to do it himself and just wanted to, not give a shit and basically show up right away after he killed his brother because he was the one that did it and he hit his face while doing it, There's a possibility that blood magic isn't real and it's all bullshit, and basically you just have to have someone believe in you, worship you, pray to you, and that gives you the power, and then you sacrifice that person who worships you. We do know that, magic isn't quite understand, and maybe blood magic and obsession with it could be the wrong, just like a ruse, a way to get us to think about it the wrong way. And then lastly, I think Euron filled up one of his ships with blood and will use that in the Battle of the Blood to summon the krakens. And I think Euron's going to be able to control the krakens with magic that's in his blood, basically similar to how Daenerys' dragons, are nice and friendly to people who have the blood of the dragon. Like on the TV show, we saw Jon touch Drogon, and that's how we knew Jon is half Targaryen. Maybe something similar with that happens with krakens, where the krakens don't attack the Silence and instead attack all the ships surrounding the Silence, and Euron is able to control the kraken at that point. I don't know. I feel like this is a good point to end this video. Obviously, I'm going to do more once I do more research. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you could please do me a massive favor and slap a like on this video. Like goal is going to be 42069 shade of the evening, drinking psychedelics. Long nights.